Jake, I feel like we can discuss what happened on yesterday's show with cousin Jared because I feel like we talked about a lot of things and we went 1-1-1, and I'm not sure we got anything right with regards to how it would play out. It was, and that's, we all, I put that in the intro. I always hear we say that we're not trying to predict exactly what will happen. We talked about, Verlander maybe taking a step back a little bit. He pitches just phenomenally well, and we still get the over because that's sports. The Braves Mets, after the night before having 14 runs, we talked about it's going to be another night for a bunch of runs. Just can't ever get off the ground. I guess, mercifully pushed that one. And then the Dodgers Guardians, like, what in the world got into the Guardians to score all those runs? And the Dodgers offense, like, am I crazy? Is it the Dodgers offense? Is it taking a step back here the last couple of week or so? Just doesn't look quite as lethal, maybe? Or am I crazy?
No, I've noticed the same thing. They seem to have slowed down. I don't know if they were carrying so much weight with their pitcher issues, especially after the All-Star break when Kershaw went down. Maybe they're just a little tired. I don't know, but it was surprising to see the Guardians put up that much, and then the Dodgers have no fight to come back.
Yeah. And at some point, maybe we're hitting a little bit earlier. We kind of worried about this, but last year down the stretch, the lineups got really weird. Just that, we start running away with the division. You're kind of locked into where you are for the playoffs. How much fight do you have? How much motivation? If it's a long season, I wouldn't have thought that would hit yet, but maybe a little bit of that's hitting, and it's kind of like, hey, whatever. This one's lost. Move on. They're just. You never really know what the mindset of these guys is, and that was surprising. But that's what we always talk about, right? It's a math show. We're talking about long-term stuff. It was kind of a ho-hum. Again, 1-1-1 day here on the show picks. On the off-show picks, we got the A+ play of the day, which was good. Looking like a slight profit right now, but just nothing overly exciting. Just another day. AJ,
Profit's better than no profit.
Some profit's better than no profit. We have a Wednesday slate with a bunch of day games, a bunch of night games, and I don't know. We'll talk about it a little bit when we get to them, but we've been taking a lot of favorites here lately, more than I would have expected, way more than we did last year. And I think what's happening, and I don't know if it's right or wrong. Like I said, you cannot argue with the math of you assess a probability and you compare that to the odds, and that makes it a good or bad play. You could disagree with the probabilities. Absolutely. We can all, say, I think 70%, I think 60%, I think whatever, right? The model's really taking a dim view on some of these bad teams. We're going to talk about one of those bad teams today in the Rockies, and the White Sox. We're not, we're talking about the model doesn't even really think they're quite as terrible as they might be looking, but the Yankees have maybe given up. The Royals and A's have been terrible all season. The Rockies, the model just does not like. I mean, does it feel like there's more really bad teams than usual, or or am I just a prisoner of the moment?
I think it's a little bit of the moment because I think we've got the Yankees kind of quitting on Boone a little bit. The White Sox, everybody in that organization has quit, even the owner. He's about to sell out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the teams have the talent. It's just I think they're ready for this year to be done. And then, of course, the A's and the Royals are just bad.
Yeah, and the Yankees could be overshadowing our thoughts on it too, because everyone's talking about it, and the Yankees being so good for so long, the number of I don't know how many years in a row with the winning record, right? So it's like, and that's kind of absorbing a lot of our thought process, right? The fact that they're just completely fallen apart here as of late. So anyway, just something interesting. I think that we just I feel like we're taking way more favorites. These -1s are just appearing a ton more than usual. That's just a perfect segue right to the first game, afternoon slot here, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 o'clock local start, Chicago. Mariners to White Sox. Mariners have not lost, it appears, since the year of our Lord 1907. At least as an Astros fan, that's what it feels like. Their offense has been playing better the last couple of months. White Sox, who the heck knows what's going on with them? It's some form of just not caring, I guess. I don't know. The relievers haven't been great. Pitching hasn't been great. Hitting hasn't been great. No one thought they were going to win 100 games this year, but I think, it started off bad and it just keeps getting bad, keeps getting worse. George Kirby versus Michael Kopech, ERA differential of 2 between these guys. Kirby's in the low 3s, Kopech's in the low 5s, and the underlying metrics say it should be even a little bit bigger than that, which is kind of crazy. This is one of the biggest starting pitcher mismatches on the board, because Jared always likes to talk about that. It's a mismatch everywhere else, but it's obviously a big one there. Jake, we're going to be in the Mariners here at -1. It's a B grade pick. We're not quite to an A grade. The A grade price in the money line required to be -174. The actual money line price is -189. So what's at a B grade? Run line, same thing. The A grade price is -117. The actual price is -120. A little bit bigger edge there on the run line because I'm expecting a ton of runs. It's going to be hot in Chicago. Almost 100 degrees for the entirety of this game. Wind blowing out to right field. We're taking the over 9 as well. Model projects 10.6. We talked about having a rule. We're only going to take totals if it's in a dome or the state of California, but it's going to be so hot, even if the wind shifts, the projection is still going to be at least 9. I want to lock in this 9 before it goes to 9.5 or 10, which is where it should be. The ball is going to absolutely fly. Jake, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, no, I love both these plays. I think the Mariners have really found something. Their pitching and their offense have kind of come aligned here, and they are just taking advantage of everybody. White Sox I think they're pulling the plug on the season. I don't think they want to be there anymore. The owner's trying to sell. I just think it's over. And add that on top of Kopech, who's just a bad pitcher. It spells for a lot of runs too, with the way the Mariners can take advantage of that. I love the -1.5 here personally. I'll go to lean a little more that way than I am the -1, and then I'm definitely taking the over at 9.
Yeah, I agree. I think the run line here is a really smart investment. Again, that it's at -120. Model says should be -135, and honestly, you have a really high likelihood this game gets out of hand because of the weather and the ball flying. The other thing to note, Kopech has allowed a higher than usual or higher than average home run per fly ball. That's why his FIP is about a run higher than his xFIP. Folks, that ain't going to get better on a day with 100-degree weather. And if the wind doesn't change and it still is blowing out at 10 to 15 miles an hour, it's really not going to help. I mean, he serves up a lot of home runs, maybe more than usual, because he gets a lot of swings and misses because he's got really good stuff, but he walks a lot of hitters. He has no idea where the ball's going. And what that means is he leaves more balls over the middle of the plate than usual as well. So when he gets hit hard. He throws so hard, ball flies off the bat, right? And it's a perfect mix for a bunch of 3-run home runs. And Kopech's done a lot of that this season. And this is just the way the Mariners are hitting. Julio Rodriguez missing the last 2 games. You have to think he's coming back soon because he was in the lineup for tonight and then scratched late. So it's not like he's really hurt and there's no way he can play, or else he wouldn't have been in the lineup. So might be a good time for him to get back in the lineup, even if not the way this Mariners team's hitting in these conditions. They ought to put up a lot of runs. It makes that run line pretty smart. It makes the over pretty smart. Again, I have the formula, the model. We're sticking with -1 as the official pick, but hedge a little bit with that money line, maybe to kind of cover yourself in case it gets close in a 7-6 kind of wild game or something. But I'm like you. I like that run line because this game could get ugly with the way these two teams are playing.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fireworks early.
Yeah, absolutely. To some night games, Rockies at the Rays, and I've mentioned this, right? The model just does not like this Rockies team, does not think their offense is very good. Their offensive rating is now up to a 70, but still really bad. The Rays offense, I'm not sure the Rays offense is quite that good today. A little bit of that is what they did early in the season, but you saw here on Tuesday night the number of runs they put up in those last few innings. We had the Rays -1 as the A+ play of the day, and it was a little bit nerve-wracking at first, but I mean, they really poured it on. You can see they still got a pretty good offense. Another big starting pitcher mismatch here, Aaron Civale and Austin Gomber. Gomber maybe not quite as bad as that 5.52 ERA, and the line metrics say that's probably a little bit course inflated, which makes sense. He's not a terrible pitcher, but Civale has been really good this year, 2.44 ERA. This is one where, depending on which eye you close, you think he's better or worse than that 89 rating. The 89 rating is kind of cutting it all in the middle. If you just look at his FIP, 332, and his ERA, you'd be convinced that Civale is closer to an 80 grade, talking about a solid number 2 pitcher. His xFIP's a little higher at 451. That would put him closer to league average. So hard to really say exactly where he falls. The results have absolutely been there against this Rockies team. You have to assume the results are going to be there as well because the Rockies just not great offensively. Model says 80% chance the Rays win this. And this is what we're talking about with the money line, right? This is a really steep money line price. Model says minus 319 would be an A grade. You can get minus 260. So basically anything that starts with a 2 is an A grade on the money line. Is that the exact way you should play it? Whether you're playing money line, run line, first five, et cetera, all the different ways you can play it, that's kind of a personal preference. But, if you do believe in the model that they have an 80% chance to play it, even with those steep odds, it's a really smart investment. Even if you think it's only, 75%, it's still a pretty smart investment. The Rays should be big favorites. The model thinks they should be even bigger than they are. As usual, of course, we're going to play the -1. Another situation where maybe you want to play the -1.5. The A grade price for that would be -134. You can currently get -120 on that. It's a little bit of a bigger difference between the money line and the run line. We talked about this yesterday with Cousin Jared because of the expected number of runs. The expected number of runs in this game is 8. The total is 8.5. Because it's fewer, the gap is bigger because it's more likely the Rays win by 1 because you have a very pitcher-friendly ballpark. As opposed to the previous game we covered, we're expecting a ton of runs. It's just a different gap between the money line and run line price. So similar run line prices, even though the Rays are much more likely to win because they're just going to more accidentally fall into a 3-2, 4-3 type game in a more pitcher-friendly stadium. So, Jake, what are your thoughts on this one? I mean, that money line price is insanely high. Are you looking more at, model would lean under? We're not taking the under, but model would lean under, parlay it with someone, just suck it up with the odds, looking at the first 5, or are you just going to bite the bullet and take the -1.5 because the Rays are so much better than the Rockies?
This one, I'm going to take the -1. I'm going to play it just like the model says there. Like, it's just I don't trust the Rockies to score 4 runs in back-to-back games. I just don't think they can do that. And then also the Rays offense at times just unexplainably disappears. Yeah. So I'll lean under, but it's nothing I'm comfortable with because Gilbert can absolutely give it up, and the Rays can just put them on in a hurry too. So I'm not comfortable on the total. I'm going to play the -1 because I think the -1.5 is probably a smarter play if you're picking either or, from my perspective, because it's more payout to your risk than taking the -2 whatever. But the Rays, like I said, their offense goes away, so that's where I like this -1, where we can at least get a push there and not lose when the Rays forget to win by 2.
Yeah, at least playing it this way, we've gotten the odds under 200, which is always a little bit more exciting. And that's, of course, a thing, right? If you're betting to have fun, the excitement factor matters. If you're betting to grow your bankroll and to make money, excitement shouldn't matter, right? That's where you're like, we always talk about there might be a little bit of slight value in defaulting to the unders because people don't like the unders and there might be value to it. It's not exciting, but that's not what we care about if we're trying to make money. So it kind of depends on why you're watching the show, what your aim is. But at least with the -1, like you said, if it's 2 to too late, and that's very possible, we got a good chance to just push and get out of here. If the Rays run away with it, great. We've still cashed. And that's why this -1 can be the best of both worlds, especially in a game where you kind of lean under / you don't think there are going to be a lot of runs. I'm like you. I would lean under as well. I wouldn't play it under unless I could get under 9 personally, just because, as we saw, the Rays can put up runs in bunches. But as we saw in the first part of the game, they could really struggle. So this game could be 2 to too late. It could be 7 to too late. Neither one of those would really shock me. It would shock me if the Rockies scored more than 4 because I just don't trust their offense. And I really like what Savali's doing, pitching at a pitcher-friendly ballpark. He should continue to have a lot of good outings. Jake, do you ever remember a team where you feel this confident, just kind of blindly fading in the Rockies and just saying, I know we're laying some odds, but we're going to profit off it in the long run because they're just not good. And the odds makers don't realize just how bad they are. It kind of reminds me of what we did with the A's early on in the season where we just banked. Is that the closest comparison we could come up with, I guess, is the A's early in the season where we just blindly faded them so much and just said, who cares? We're going to profit.
Yeah, that's the only one I can come up with. That's just, I don't know. I've never really found myself falling into the habit of auto fading teams. I'm more of find a team to auto back because it's easier to find something I like what they're doing versus depending on professionals, to be bad.
Yeah.
So I don't know. The A's is probably the closest one I can think of.
Yeah, and the Royals, I guess, all season has probably been another one. They just had that insanely weird 7-game stretch where they just couldn't lose for a week, which was weird. But yeah, this Rockies team, I think there's still a little bit of perception that they're decent. Model doesn't agree with that. The model's taking a stand, saying this is what we're going to do for a couple months here, and we're going to see if it works out. If the model's right, it's going to profit for us. It hurts when you lose, but it's tough to remember. And we talked about this with the A's at the start of the season. We were fading them. We had a game where we faded the A's like minus 250 and they won. And it was like, oh man, that hurt. But it's like, they also lost the previous 6 that we faded them. And so we gave back some of our winnings, but we were still well ahead. And that's kind of how I feel like this Rockies team is. They seemingly find ways to disappoint, especially on the road, just like they blew it here on Tuesday. Speaking of teams that we've been on one side or the other, Blue Jays and Orioles, should be another interesting game. We had the Blue Jays, shockingly. I know you're shocked at this, viewer. If you aren't with us in Dub Club, we had the Blue Jays an A-grade play here on Tuesday night. The Blue Jays got it done for us in extras. We've been mostly fading the Blue Jays here ever since the inception of this show, and mostly backing the Orioles. The Blue Jays have been a team that's been largely overpriced for a while. The Orioles have been a team that hasn't getting enough respect. Based off the line here Tuesday, I kind of wondered if that's shifting, if people are kind of realizing this Blue Jays team isn't bad, but they aren't, a 100-win team. People are realizing this Orioles team is good. I kind of wonder because we found value in the Blue Jays and that worked out. It'll be another good matchup here. Kevin Gausman versus Jack Flaherty. Gausman clearly the better pitcher here, one of the better ones in baseball. Underlying metrics suggest maybe even a little better than that 3.24 ERA, but make no mistake about it, that 3.24 ERA is fantastic. Flaherty, 4.73 ERA, advanced metrics, and maybe it should be a little better. Flaherty's just been all over the map. He's pitched really well. He's pitched in and out of jams and gotten good results, and then he's really blown up at times too. It just seems like you never quite know what you're going to get with him. Reliever-wise, the model likes the Blue Jays relievers overall more, likes the back end of the Orioles better. Both offenses are pretty good. Blue Jays offense a little bit stronger, though that gap shrinks righty on righty. If it was lefty on lefty, the gap would actually increase. But we're going to be on the Blue Jays again. I know this is shocking. We've loved backing the Orioles, but Blue Jays back-to-back nights we're picking them here. Model says they win this 57% of the time. Correct price should be minus 131. We're going to grab minus 123 as the B grade price. That is the exact threshold it needs to be a B grade play. Minus 114 would get it to an A grade. Jake, you've been on it. We've talked about how much we love the Orioles. It feels weird fading them, right? I mean, how are we doing this?
Yeah, I don't like it. It feels weird. It tastes bad, but it paid off on Tuesday when we did it, and that's what you're looking for. And I think we're in another spot. I think things may have started to balance out a little bit where people, like you said, have figured out the Orioles are a good team and team to back at most time. But I like going against Flaherty here. Since he got hurt and came back with the Cardinals like last year or whenever it was, he just hasn't really been the same. And I think when the Orioles traded for him, they were hoping that change of scenery would spark him back to being really good. And I don't see it happening. I think he's just going to be a very average pitcher. And this Blue Jays offense is loaded with talent that can take apart an average pitcher. And I think that's what we're going to see tonight.
I think we've talked about this a lot recently. Right? This is a math show, and it's all about the price. If this is priced where you can get the Orioles at, plus 150 versus getting the Jays at minus 120, those are two very different worlds. The Blue Jays should be favored. I think we all would agree with that the difference in starting pitchers is the big thing. The offenses are pretty close. The relievers are all pretty close. I mean, you can argue about that, but it's reasonable. People could agree or disagree on some of that. It's pretty close, right? Biggest difference here is Kevin Gausman's fantastic. So the Blue Jays should be favored. It's just all about the price. And that's where it's been interesting to watch the progression of both of these teams. For so long now, the Jays got a little bit too much respect, and that doesn't mean you should have faded them every night. It just means that if you faded them more than not, you profited. We tended to do that. Orioles, flip side of that, for so long, it took, they just weren't getting the respect that they needed. And I don't know why it took so long to come around. They've been in first place in the AL East for a while now, but it does seem like maybe people are kind of finally realizing, okay, maybe we should respect the Orioles a little bit more. And that changes. If this game's played 3 months ago, we're probably on the Orioles because the price is probably different. And that's what matters. Is again, we're talking about the long term. One of these sides is going to be right. One team is going to win, but we're not concerned about the one game. We're concerned about, is the process that we're using going to work over the long run? And the long run in one night is 5 games or 10 games or whatever. And in the week is 30 or 50. And in the month is hundreds of games or so many games. And in the long run, this is a pretty good price to back the Blue Jays, which again is so crazy because we've rarely found good prices on the Blue Jays and good prices to fade the Orioles, and almost never in the same game, it seems like. So it does feel like a weird world to be in here, backing the Blue Jays. But like you said, their offense is pretty good. Bullpen's surprisingly good. Their numbers for the season, I was surprised at how good they are. And of course, you got to love back. Anytime you can back a guy like Kevin Gausman, you have to like that, right?
I was going to say, it's not been often we've been able to back him because typically the line is a little too expensive to back him. And this time I'm very happy it's not.
Yeah, absolutely. That will take us to our pitcher prop of the day. Going to cover another one that's not one we talked about on show. There aren't many options here the night before, but I found one that I liked here for us. Jose Urquidy under 4.5 strikeouts. You're getting plus odds on it. You can see he's all over the map. The innings pitched are kind of all over the map. It's 4, 5, or 6 for the most part. He doesn't tend to go deep. He's not really a high strikeout guy. As you can see on screen, under 8 strikeouts per 9. The Red Sox are about 10th, I believe, in the league with regards to strikeouts. 10th in the good sense, and the 10th least strikeout team, so they're better than average. The biggest thing to me is I'm just not a believer in Jose Urquidy as an Astros fan, as someone who's watched him pitch as he came back from injury. He did really well in that last start you could see there. That was against the Angels, against the Mike Troutless Angels. You could see, though, before that, how long it took him to get the 5 strikeouts. I'm just not convinced he's going to go deep. I'm not convinced he's going to get a lot of strikeouts. I'm just not convinced he's going to do a lot of good things. Bullpen, has been used pretty heavily by Dusty Baker this year. Maybe a little too much, but I think it's because guys like Urquidy going out there, and he's been hurt for part of the season, of course, but not pitching great, forcing Dusty's hand to go to the relievers. And that seems like the same thing that's going to happen here. I just don't trust Urquidy to pitch deep enough to amass a bunch of strikeouts. Jake, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think Baker's going to have a quick hook on him tonight. With against the Red Sox. Red Sox have some power to that and can really hang a number up, and they make a lot of contact and they pass the baton a lot. And Urquidy's just I don't think he's really ever truly been a high strikeout guy. I think he's typically like ground ball outs kind of thing. And I don't see him getting to 5 strikeouts. I don't really know if he's really going to go 5 innings, but trying to get him to go at least 1 inning is going to be very tough.
Yeah, Red Sox against righties this season are 6th best, 6th least strikeout team. On top of that, Baker has pulled Urquidy in the middle of an inning in 4 of his 7 starts this season. So you're talking about a situation where he's not even letting him finish the inning because of the fact that Urquidy just hasn't done well and Dusty's gone to the pen. I have to imagine that hook is going to get even shorter. If you were not familiar with what the Astros are doing, they're using a 6-man rotation, but it's not what you think with a 6-man rotation. It's a 5-man rotation for Verlander and Fromber, and we're not sure if Javier's in that mix or not, and a 6-man rotation for everybody else, but one of those guys gets snuck back into the bullpen every time through, which makes a lot of sense because you want to get your better guys out there every 5th day, especially in a race like this. And by putting one of those guys in the pen, having him come out, it actually gives the bullpen a night off. And so Hunter Brown recently throw, I think, 3 innings in relief and give the bullpen a little bit of a rest, that sort of thing. By constantly having a starter in the pen, he can actually be a little more aggressive with the bullpen. And the attitude, once we've done this, I think has gotten even more high for Dusty to say, I don't have to let this guy try to give me 6 innings. I can pull him after 4 because I've got that starter in the bullpen to help me out either today or tomorrow or yesterday helped me out, whatever happened to be the situation with solving these innings. And so it just seems like a perfect setup here that unless the Red Sox bats just go completely quiet, like you said, he's probably not going to go 5. And that's what you really think that he might even need to go 6 to get 5. The last thing I'll note on this, as someone who's watched the Astros Red Sox series so far, the Red Sox have had a ton of people on base, had a ton of foul home runs, or like 4 for 50 or something with runners in scoring position. That's something that isn't really consistent, isn't really predictive. That's pretty random. So far, the Astros pitchers have worked out of the jams. I'm not saying Urquidy can or can't work out of the jams. I'm just saying if you're thinking the Red Sox offense has gotten cold in Houston, they've been putting the ball in play well, having guys on. It's just been kind of fluky that they haven't scored runs. Not saying they will score runs here. It's just that's not really predictive. This Red Sox offense is still good, and a good offense against Urquidy, personally as an Astros fan, scares me. So fading him is something I'm looking to do. Jake, anything to add here on this prop?
No. I just think it's a very smart play, and I'm very happy that we're getting it at plus odds.
I was thinking the same thing. I was like, I would probably still play this at about like minus 105, maybe. Plus odds is even better. Remember, if you were interested in checking out all of the data, the analytics, the trends, all the neat features that Outlier has, Outlier.bet/professor is where to go for your 7-day free trial. Again, that link's in the show description as well. Jake, that's all we've got for the viewer. A day full of baseball from morning to evening, including a doubleheader out on the West Coast. Jake, any parting words for the viewer?
No, I absolutely love it that we get day baseball. You can just watch it all the way through and pretend to work. Get you through that midweek hump day. Then when you get bored with baseball, you can get ready for college football because that's coming up, and that's just crazy to say how fast this year has gone by.
It really has flown by, absolutely. All right, well, thank you so much for watching this episode of Picks with the Professor. Don't forget to subscribe so you can ensure the sports betting content provided on this channel is dropped right into your feed. We'll be back again tomorrow, more baseball betting content. But until then, as always, best of luck. And remember, you can eat your betting money, but please don't bet your eating money.